Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I ask you again to go ahead and like and share this morning, and then we'll jump into the 62nd Psalm. 62nd Psalm. If you want to grab a Bible or turn on your phone or tablet or just follow along here. But we're looking at, again, a psalm I believe was written in the very early stages as David realized that his son was rebelling and making and moving towards trying to take David off of the throne. And David is very discouraged and trying to understand, I think, how this happened, why God would allow something like this to happen, and wrestling with his the fact of his own sin, the sin with Bathsheba, and the ultimate then murder of her husband. And so David is wrestling with a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings at this time, and he's going to write some things here to us today that are, I think, very important words, and also very important to remember who wrote them. You're probably, all of us have probably had it happen where somebody comes along and wants to give you advice who has never really walked where you're walking. It may be, someone that that doesn't have children who wants to tell you how to raise yours, or someone that wants to tell you how you should deal with maybe losing a loved one when they've never been through it themselves. And I think they mean well, but I think all of us kind of down deep in our heart are thinking, yeah, you just don't know. You really don't know. So in this case, it's good again to remember David, when the words we're going to look at today, to remember who is saying the words, who's writing the words, and the situations, the battles that David has been through. David has experienced every, I think, possible range of emotion. He has been through by now, again, his sin with Bathsheba, and the confrontation over that. He's struggling with the fact that his own son is trying to take over the throne. David knows what he's talking about in these verses we're going to look at. And so when David gives us this counsel, I think we should pay it especially special attention to what David is about to say. And so in verse 8, David says, "Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us, Selah. Surely men of low degree are vanity, and men of high degree are a lie. To be laid in the balance, they are altogether lighter than vanity. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them." And so those three verses this morning, again, I want us to look at and keep in your mind, and I can't stress that enough, keep in your mind who is saying this as we talk about these verses. David is going to encourage all of us here. Again, in the first 7 verses, he was writing about how he had found confidence, how he had been able to find relief and protection in God. But now he shifts and begins to write to you and I. that when we go through trials, when we go through tests and tribulations and problems in our life, he says, trust in him at all times. And so David, again, is someone who has walked the walk and been there. And his advice, having been through these things, having been through the battles with Saul, having been through the sin with Bathsheba, having dealing with his rebellious son, David says, I have found that our answer, my only hope, what I've learned is that we should trust in him at all time, to pour out our heart before him, because God is a refuge. And so he's saying that as we go through this, he's saying that we can pour out our heart to him. He says, men of a low degree are vanity, and men of a high degree are a lie. To be laid in the balance, they are altogether lighter than vanity. What David is again is talking about here is that we again that we pour out our heart to him. We pour out. He is a refuge that we can turn to and to trust him. That everything that we are thinking, he says, poured out before him. And the word that he's used there is basically the Hebrew word for face. He's basically saying face to face, that we can go to God and take shelter in him. We don't have to be I think sometimes people are, I don't know if it's afraid or ashamed to share with God their burdens and their pains and their hurts. But David says, in my experience with Saul, in my experience with Bathsheba and Uriah, in my experience with my own son, I have learned that my own self. And then he says what he's talking about in these next two verses then is the kind of the opposite extreme. He says there's a real danger of trying to be self-sufficient. He talks about here not to trust in our riches, our money, our wealth, our prosperity, but he says it's worthless. He says it has nothing to it. Men of low degree are vanity, men of high degree are a lie. In other words, he's not impressed by our riches, our position, whether you're poor or rich, no matter what. He's saying we're all the same in God's sight. That we don't offer God anything, and so the best thing we can do is come before Him humbly, rather than trust in, as he says, in wealth or in power. He says, actually, if anything, the Bible teaches that those things lead us into more sin. And so David is teaching us here. And again, here's a man who has wealth and power. He's the king. Here's a man who's been nothing. He's been a shepherd. Here's a man who has, again, sat on the throne. David, when David says these things, David isn't just speculating. David is telling us that our hope is found in God Himself, that we cast our cares before Him, that we pour out our heart to Him and give Him our burdens and our troubles, and to pull those out to Him. And so, we have, I'm going to jump out of Psalms for a minute and go fast forward to the book of Philippians, where Paul writes to us there, be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And in that last verse is one that one of my favorites. It says, and let the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep our hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And so David, again, is a man who knows what he's talking about. He hadn't read this in a book. He hasn't heard this from a friend. David says, I've been there and done that, and I've learned that the only solace I have, the only comfort I have, the only hope I have is to put my absolute trust in Him and to pour out my heart before Him. Actually, we have, it's hard because, again, I think sometimes pride plays into the picture. We've been taught to handle things ourselves. We've been taught, be tough, be resilient. But David, having been there, tells us that we need to learn to pour out our hearts before Him and give our burdens to Him, leave our burdens with the Lord. And so this morning, I don't know who, why we are on this verse today, and I don't know why you chose to listen in today. But whatever you're facing, whatever burdens, whatever challenges, whatever pressure you're under, David reminds us to trust in Him at all times, to pour out our heart before Him. And I can't tell you I've always been good at that. Like most people, there have been many times in my life where I tried to handle things myself, be strong, be a man, all those catchy phrases that we throw around. But when it was over and I was finished being drugged through the mud, I've learned that my only hope, my best hope, not just my best hope, but my only hope, is to do just what David says, to pour out my heart before Him. And I hope you've learned that. And if you haven't, I hope you'll hear me today, hear David, and whatever it is that you're going through, and whatever you're facing, whatever is challenging you today, that you'll pour it out to Him and trust Him with it. And He will be a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. All right, you have a good day.